Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Michelle here from happyhealthyher.com. And in this week's Compassionate Chat, we are tackling what empaths and sensitive people, including INFJs and INFPs, need in relationships. As you likely know, especially if you've been following previous Compassionate Chats, empaths and sensitive people tend to attract narcissistic individuals to us. We've talked about the why fairly extensively, and I will link to some of those previous chats below. So you know what you don't need. You don't need someone who's going to be using you, taking from you, or treating like you are unworthy. So what do you actually need in relationships, and why does this even matter? As I shared in my book, Online Dating for Sensitive Women, when I first started dating after my divorce from a narcissist, I hadn't even thought that much about what I wanted or needed in a relationship. I kind of was just like running into dating headlong, which is why I actually wrote the book after the fact, because I knew there was a much more healthy and balanced way to approach dating. And so in the book, I actually have in the whole first phase section of the book, just preparation for getting ready to date and realizing what it is you want in a partner and what you even want from the relationship. This was something that was a brand new perspective for me. Because much of my life, I just kind of took what came my way. And unfortunately, that meant a lot of people that really were not meant for me ended up being in my life, and I kind of let them just stay. So it's actually really, really important to define our needs and our wants really in all areas of our lives. But it's especially true in our close relationships. The people who are closest to us have the potential to harm or heal us. And so we need to be really selective. So as I shared in the book, I ultimately ended up writing out a wish list for my ideal partner. And I actually was just looking at the book, and I have the exact list that I put together. It was actually a refinement of the original list. The original list was really basic. And then 8 days before I actually met my ideal partner, who I've been with for over 5 years, I actually changed that wish list to be a lot more specific. And it is unbelievable to me how closely my partner follows that list. So knowing and asking for what you want is a really, really powerful tool. And that is one of the reasons I really wanted to share this piece of information with you today. So to begin, if you are sensitive, one of the core elements that you really need is safety. Our bodies and our minds are naturally on high alert when we're sensitive. So we need to be around people who feel safe and calm. This, of course, sounds like common sense, but we often don't acknowledge or honor our needs, or even allow ourselves to seek the kinds of relationships that will be healthiest for us. So let's get into the 9 things in particular that I believe empaths and sensitives need to have healthy relationships that actually support and nurture them. To begin, I think it's probably obvious to say that it's easier to have relationships with other empaths and other sensitive people because they understand us, they have that same nature, they're able to support us and nurture us. But since sensitive people tend to be fairly rare, that's not always an option. And it's certainly not essential. We can actually meet people who don't follow such a strict criteria and still work within our sensitivities and are going to be helpful and loving to us. But I did feel like it was important to mention that having at least a few empath or sensitive friends has been so supportive to me. And I have met these people through a variety of different paths. Through spiritual work, I met some during my master's degree. I have met them in forums and online, and just honestly met through other friends who knew we were both sensitive and thought we should meet each other. So there's lots of different ways to actually call in new friends and new relationships. I've mentioned this before several times in my work, but I say this quite readily, that what we ask for out loud is often very powerful. So if you want to call in an empathic friend or a sensitive friend who really gets you, ask for that. Write it in your journal on a daily basis. Ask for it before you go to bed at night. And slowly over time, I think you will find that you found your person. So let's get into the 9 things. Number 1 is validation. Now, we've talked about validation before. It's actually one of the very first compassionate chats I did several months ago. Validation is the common element that we all need, all humans, whether you're sensitive or not. So I felt it really was important to put this at the top of the list. For people who are sensitive, it's especially important to have validation because we've been frequently invalidated much of our lives. We've been told we're too sensitive. We've been told we're weird. We've been told that we're too difficult. And so having a partner who validates us, who sees us for who we are, who attempts to understand us is incredibly important. It's going to be foundational to your health and your happiness with that person. The second thing is understanding and acceptance. So similar to validation, this is someone who just accepts who you are. They see that you're a little bit different. They see that you have sensitivities that are not necessarily like everyone else's. And they don't try to change you. They just honor that that is who you are as a person. They love the other parts of you, and so they'll take these parts that are a little bit more challenging. That's how partnerships work. We accept the good and bad in each other, and we try to understand the people who are around us. So it's really important to have someone with those traits. Number 3 is empathy and compassion. This, again, probably feels obvious. You have boatloads of empathy and compassion for other people, and you deserve to have that in return. Your people really need to have empathy and compassion so that you'll be bolstering and honoring and supporting each other. It's sort of the foundation, in my opinion, of great love and depth in a relationship, is that you both have empathy and compassion. The 4th piece, I think, is actually foundational for all relationships, yet again, and that is open and honest communication. You have got to be able to tell your partner when you're not feeling well, when your energy is depleted, when you're feeling ultra sensitive, or if something is going on. You cannot hide those aspects of yourself. I spent years of my life trying to hide myself, and all that actually did was dim me. It made me weak. It made me depleted because I could not be authentic. I could not be honest and open with other people. When I started to tell people about my sensitivities, when I started to own it, that's when my connections really got deep and meaningful. So it is very, very important that we feel able to have open and honest communication with our people, and that they feel the same with us. It's very much a two-way street. So that is a really, really helpful foundation to having a happy relationship, is the honest communication. The 5th piece is flexibility. So when you are sensitive, you're going to have to change plans. You're going to have to change your mind. You ultimately have to rely on your own senses, your own energy, to know whether or not you're going to feel good or be able to go out on a particular day or not. And so having someone who is flexible is going to be crucial for your happiness. Because again, you want to be able to show up authentically. And if you have a flexible partner who's easy and going with the flow, there's no problem with you changing plans or having to account for some of your sensitivities. Number 6 is patience. So patience is, of course, very similar to flexibility, but it's just sort of a different energy of being willing to adapt to you, willing to grow in understanding of you, just not trying to change you again, but kind of accepting you and allowing for the way you show up. Number 7 is emotional stability. So we need people who have the ability to stay calm and be grounded and have sort of a neutral energy. What is very hard for someone who is sensitive to emotions and energies is someone who is a bit erratic or chaotic. I have had really wonderful people who were quite erratic, who it was hard for me to be friends with. They were fun and they were nice, but my energy field was feeling like it was constantly being depleted by this person because they were really erratic. They were super hyper they were like super hyper, and I just needed someone who's a lot more calm and neutral. So the same can be said for being around people who are anxious or depressed. It can be very hard to be around someone like that if you are sensitive to energy, because you will take that on. You will actually own their anxiety and feel their anxiety as if it's yours. Now, everybody, in my opinion, struggles with their mental health from time to time. Everybody balances anxiety, depression, and different emotional ranges. That's part of being human. I'm not saying that's not something that I'm going to allow people to have. Of course, people need to be able to have their emotional ranges. I'm just saying, in my experience, it's far healthier for me to be around people who are fairly stable and neutral in their emotional affect. Number 8, similarly, is having a matching temperament. So I consider myself to be a pretty positive person, and my partner is like super positive. He's super happy, and it's such a delight to be around him, because I do have a tendency to read the room and my energy will shift according to who I'm around. So imagine my surprise being around a really positive, happy person. It helps me to be positive and happy more of the time. What is super interesting around a sensitive person or an empath is we often will get criticized for being like a Debbie Downer, or for being anxious, or for being different things, when what we're actually doing is reacting to the emotional temperament of the people around us. And so that's kind of an interesting thing. They will be projecting on us, telling us that we are all these negative things, but when in reality we're just mirroring back what that person is giving us for energy. So it's so much better if you're with someone with a matching temperament who is aware of their temperament, who is aware of their moods, and is trying to keep their energy positive and uplifting. It's super helpful. And then finally, number 9 is the ability to give you space. I mean, the thing about being an empath or a sensitive person, even just an introverted person, is that we need a lot of space for recovery. We need downtime to replenish our energy fields. We are often can get very depleted depending on who we are around. And so having space, having our ability to have our own freedom is so beautiful in a relationship. And it's a real gift that in my personal relationship, my partner is actually quite extroverted, which I was a little afraid about, me being introverted and him being extroverted, but it works well. It meshes together because he is an ENFP, which is actually the most introverted of the extroverts. So he can be very introspective with me. He's happy to have downtime with me. And then he'll go and hang out with his friends and have a very active social life outside of me. So it's perfect. He's not relying on me for all of his social support needs, nor am I with him. And we have this balance of time apart and time together. And that, in my opinion, the not being around each other all the time actually makes us value the time we are together. So after hearing this list and thinking this through, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, that's a long list. I'll never find someone like that. Or you might be putting yourself down thinking, oh, I'm too needy or difficult. I can't believe I need all those things. These thoughts have actually totally plagued me too. And I had to remember what my friends and family often tell me is that I am fun to be around. They're happy to be in my presence. They're happy to be in my positive energy. So I bring a lot of goodness to my relationships. So if I need these other things for balance, those who love me and support me are going to want to give me those things. And they do actually give me those things. And in addition, I can tell you that ever since I got clear on my own wants and needs, including this lengthy list, I've attracted in those people. I actually truly do have a handful of people who honor my needs and my wants. And I feel so much more supported and so much healthier since creating this space for myself and these types of people around me. I also like to remind myself of, it's a quote that was actually attributed to Marilyn Monroe, but many say that she probably did not actually say this, but if you can't accept me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. There is some truth to that. Like, we got to take everybody's personality traits. Everybody's good with the bad. And this is true for someone who is sensitive and empathetic as well. Because most empaths bring a lot of warmth, compassion, understanding, validation, support, joy, and love to their relationships. So if you're given all that good stuff, your people are going to want to support you. If they're really appreciative of all that good stuff, they're going to want to help you and support you for the stuff that's a little bit harder. So I hope this was helpful. As usual, if you like this, please give it a like. And if you really like a little bit more compassion in your life, please go ahead and subscribe. And if you think of someone who this might help, please go ahead and share it. I really appreciate you joining me. It's so great to have the small community I feel like we're building. It really helps me a lot to know that people are liking and sharing my work. I'm so grateful for all of you who have subscribed and are supporting me. Please know that. And I hope, as always, that this does help you and help you to know you're not alone and that you are worthy of love, always. So, as always, I wish you happiness and good health, and I thank you for being with me.